Hello, 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 everybody.
Hello.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us, Scottie. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. So today we have, as usual, a special guest. So you know, with my podcast, if you're following my channel, that I love to interview different people, and I love to hear from their different perspective, their different point of view, and their different experience. So today we are diving in with Scottie Belfi, and we're going to talk languages, we're going to talk education, we're going to talk learning, and sprinkling with a little bit of coaching, which I think you naturally do, Scottie, which is absolutely lovely. So first of all, welcome. And it's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I've been really looking forward to this opportunity. You know how much I love and respect you and the work that you're doing in the world, and to get to come alongside, it's such a privilege.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm so excited too. So first, could you tell us, a little bit about yourself? What would you like to share, just as a short introduction?
Sure, sure. It would be my pleasure. Well, I'm coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia, in the southeast of the United States. I'm a lifelong francophile and francophone. I'm spending now about half my time, if possible, in France. Bordeaux is my second home, and that grew out of an exchange that I created with a friend of mine in Arcachon, between our two high schools, when I was still teaching full-time in an American independent high school. So we had our students going back and forth, exchanging really authentic communication. I mean, that's the key word. And through that basically decade, I realized that, I wanted to be spending more time in France. And so during COVID, it seemed like a good time. It said, this voice said, if not now, then when? Even though I love this work, how could I do it in a way that's a little more gentle and provides me more free time to just live and work and experience all the things that I love about life in France. So now I think I have a pretty good balance,
Yeah.
and I'm enjoying that, doing language coaching, both in English for French speakers who have professional and personal goals. I do most of the coaching through a company that's based in Bordeaux, which is called English Insiders. Highly recommend, check them out. And also, and then I also do language coaching into French for English speakers who are ready to have their déclic, and get past all the corrections of grammar and little red marks on their paper, to be able to make a real connection and friends professionally and personally. So it's the joy of my life to coach.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm just picking up some keywords here that I've just heard. So I think one of them being balance, on a quite personal level.
Yes.
But I think it's part also of what you provide, as in the work that you do with people. And some other keywords that I'm going to suggest here are, you talked about communication. So
Absolutely.
this idea of authentic communication,
Yeah.
but also I hear a deep sense of connection to culture, to intercultural, also communication, and that how much that is your experience and how much you love. And for me, you're a bit of a bridge actually between those two cultures, those two countries, physically, emotionally, maybe spiritually. If we want to go that far.
Let's
Um,
go.
what do you think of those three keywords, and what comes to you?
I mean, thank you. It's very flattering that you see these things in me. It is my intention to be very inviting to all of my clients, because we all are starting from somewhere. We're all coming to this place, into language adventure with an accent. And so occasionally it's important for me to let my students hear my little adorable accent in French. I wish I had zero, but it's okay. I embrace it. And so what begins to happen when, for example, I have led book clubs on Brene Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection. it's a book that had meant so much to me. I had done it as a work study. And then I literally woke up in the middle of the night. I was in Bordeaux and I said, oh my gosh, this is it. The connection between acquiring a conversational level in another language, even if you make mistakes in the subjunctive, because really this is not going to prevent you from communicating with someone. And that's the goal. I realized that the connection between this willingness to try something new, to take a risk of making mistakes, but with the purpose of making a connection with another person, it sets that person free also to be vulnerable, to be honest, to drop the perfectionism that really can hold us back. I mean, I was raised that way, right? You know, this is what it should look like. And so beginning to unpack some of that, both in my personal life and in my professional life, I think this is the part that about language learning that's transformational.
Yeah.
And so there's actually an article that came out recently that is itemizing when you are deep in immersion in second language acquisition, you are willing to take risks, you are willing to be creative, you're able to look for the workaround. You know, we call it in language learning, we call it circumlocution. You may not know the word for heron, you know, this particular kind of bird, but a little kid might call it a duck because that's the only kind of bird they know the name for. But okay, we're on the track. This is a bird. Tell me more. And so this idea of tell me more is my approach to language learning. And I think that it is. Thank you for using the word bridge, because I think that, wow, if there's anything we can do in our world right now to be a bridge, that's a pleasure.
It is because it's this essence of connection. It's a connection between each other, connection between cultures. But what I hear that is probably very original and unique, and I love about your approach, is that connection to yourself. You know, to discovering. You talked about freedom, freeing yourself. The more you see potentially these limitations that you might feel are here, preventing you from, in that example, speaking another language, daring, being vulnerable,
yes, daring is a great word. It's a great word.
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone and trying something incredible. That's and when you're able to see, oh, what if this limit is not here? Maybe this one isn't either. And I'm closer and closer and closer to myself. So maybe so that everybody understands us, because of course I'm familiar with your approach and the unique way that you teach. So you already briefly mentioned that it's really about conversation. Can you tell us more about this approach and the way you would coach them with their approach with the languages?
Sure. So particularly when I work with my French clients who are interested in improving their English, the number one first thing, 100% of the time they say when we get together is, I am so sorry, my English, it is horrible. They begin to apologize. Yeah. And so my first coaching with them is replace your I'm sorry with thank you. Thank you for being patient. Thank you for being here with me. I don't interrupt a student, a client, when they're speaking to point out a mistake. What I do is I listen in a natural approach. And the way we raise our children in their first language, when your child says, me hungry, you don't say, oh, sorry, that's the wrong pronoun, so no lunch for you. Right? You kneel down and you go eye to eye with them and you say, oh, are you hungry? I'm hungry too. What should we have? Do you feel like a salad or a pizza? And then they say, pizza. What kind of pizza? Do we want vegetables on it? What vegetables? And so in this way, it's absolutely mimicking the way we learned first language. I mean, little babies don't come into the world writing on pieces of paper grammar lessons and conjugating verbs. What they do is they listen to understand because the person who's talking to them cares about them. And then the passive speech, which, the receptive speech comes first, listening comes first,
Mm.
speaking comes later. And this
Mm.
is what everyone tells me. Everyone tells me, oh, well, I can read French, but I can't speak it. It's like, well, how could you? You've been in a classroom with 30 people, and every so often one question gets posed to you, and then you're like nervous, you're going to conjugate the verb incorrectly. I mean, it doesn't promote ease.
Yeah.
So I think I use what's a kind of a pop-up grammar idea. Like if someone says, you know, I've never really understood why you use être when it's reflexive. Can you explain? Oh, sure. We'll just stop right there and we'll do a little explanation. And then we resume with just conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the way. I have to give credit to Judith Dubois and the Agen workshop. If any of you out there listening are language teachers, you absolutely must attend the Agen workshop in France. I think this had always been my method, just intuitively as a kind of an artist, as a creative person. But when I went to the workshop, I got the language of second language acquisition theory from Stephen Krashen. And that's really what they base on their proficiency through storytelling. I mean, when someone starts to tell you a story, you don't worry about the grammar. You lean in for the details because you want to know what happens next. And so that's really the premise. Whether I work with young people or with older people, in any context, the idea is yes and it's improv.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. And I love how, you know, you mentioned how we learned a first language, right? And how much we forget, I think, sometimes particularly with things as dry and I was going to say strict. It's more like it's very structured as grammar, right? We forget the humanity. We forget that we are human beings trying to have a connection, trying to feel that something is going on, that they can contribute and give and receive value, right? And with languages, I think we've probably disconnected that too much in our educational systems and the way maybe we approach things. While if this human kindness, respect, way of treating each other is in place, it sounds like with your experience, it sounds like a good foundation, a good start to then to feel like you're in a safe space to make mistakes as well, to ask questions,
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm just like, yes, everything you're saying, because, I can look back in my own journey and I can remember this amazing French teacher I had when I was young named Libby Evans at the Harpeth Hall School in Nashville. And I can remember, all the people along the way who encouraged me instead of discouraging me.
Yeah.
Right? Because the filter is there. And so if what we're saying is we're using language to explore, discover culture, and like you said, ourselves as well as other people, we acknowledge that these two things are not just two vocabulary lists where this equals this and this equals this and this equals this, because certainly what's fun about coaching in American English is so many expressions come up naturally with my clients that lead us into a conversation about, oh, well, that expression, it comes from Texas, and in Texas, everything is big. And then we can go on and really give insight into why people use expressions that they do based on their interpretation of the world. Yes. And so it's the same going in both directions. I'll tell you a funny little story. The first time I went to France with my husband, I mean, at this point, I've been living a lot of time in France through the years, and we're having dinner. And he goes, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" He said, "You look upset." And I said, "Oh no, this is just my French face." Because, in the United States, when I'm with my friends, we're all smiling. Our eyes are bright. It's just our culture. It's the default position is, how are you doing? Awesome. How are you? Amazing. And so sometimes when I'm in France, I have to tone myself down a little bit to not be too much. And so sometimes that creates misunderstanding, doesn't it? People come away and they say, "Oh, French are snobby." No, you'll never imagine a friendship so dedicated and enthusiastic and loving than a true friendship with a French friend, but it's not going to happen in the first 30 seconds. And so there's the analogy out there about coconuts and peaches. I didn't make it up. I heard it somewhere. I'm not sure. Thank you to whoever made this up. But the idea that French people are like coconuts. They might seem a little hard on the outside, but ooh, once you get on the inside, sweet.
Sweet.
Americans may come across as a peach. They're just sweet as can be the first time you meet them. And then maybe, there's more going on. It's more complicated than that. But our disposition is to be sort of happy externally. And in the French disposition is to be a little bit more reserved. Now, tell me a little bit about your language learning journey, because I'm curious if you've experienced this also in terms of the two cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. So much resonates with me with what you're sharing there in terms of, so for me, the exploration of languages, so initially as a learner and as well as a teacher, because that was my first training.
Right.
So trained as a language teacher, did a master's degree, but on a sort of what I've experienced in my early 20s, it was a way for me to the way I would put it, it's I was an explorer and I wanted to travel the world to explore us as a human being. Yeah. It felt, and it still does, felt like a mystery. Like, what is this thing that that we are? What is this thing that we call culture, and what is potentially this vision of the world? And the language, it's always been for me a reflection of that, a reflection of the language of the world, and diving into it. And for me, it was the case with French, English, and Spanish, and I also lived in India, was just a door or a window opening towards another way at experiencing things. And what's great about that is that I've learned so much about me. I've learned so much about everybody else as well, of course, and us as a collective, and us as relationships, and what we can do together. But it also always been like, as like what you just described, right? It's like, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just that we have this amazing range of flavors of different ways of expressing things. And the richer we are with, more of a variety, the more interesting it gets.
It's I mean, what you're saying is the absolute crux of everything that I believe. And I actually experienced it this weekend. I hope it's okay if I mention this, what's happening in Israel and with Hamas right now. For 1 week, I was like everyone, I was getting my news and reading, but it was all in English. And then my friend Michelle from English Insiders, her amazing new program is called International Minds. Check that out. She sent me an article written by, I have to reference the name to make sure it's correct. She's a rabbi in France. Her name is Delphine Orvilleur. And reading her interpretation, perspective, point of view about what's happened in French, it was a completely nuanced, new way, not only of, taking the information and putting it in another language. It's just not, people bring their perspective, their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and so what you're saying is so essential, because when you bring that back to yourself and your own self-concept, it's both, I think, humbling in a good way. It provides humility, and it also provides incredible empowerment. Yeah. Because we realize that our ability to connect with others has nothing to do with grammar. And so, and grammar will emerge naturally when there is a desire to make a connection. And reading is very important, of course, just at your level, at what's comprehensible. I mean, comprehensible input is the term that we use for language acquisition, because if it's it's incomprehensible, it's meaningless. It's entertaining, but it's meaningless. It won't stick. And then if it's too simple, it's the same. So this power that we have now with our ability to connect with people all around the world, to make connections, to see that it's like the iceberg analogy too, like what you see above the water and then all that's below that's keeping that iceberg afloat. I mean, that's what's rich, right? That's where we make a connection, and not only in the generosity that comes with seeing someone else, but the way it changes the way we see ourselves. So yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Yes, and I think it's a great example, very connected to the news and what's happening in the world, but connected to our subject, the ability that that we can grow to open up our minds with the learning of a language. And this is why I feel that it's a lot more impactful. It's a lot more enjoyable. It's a lot more impactful. It's a lot more empowering to have an approach such as yours in your coaching. And one of the results of that naturally is the opening up to others, other visions, the ability to see, oh, I see where, why would I have an opinion like that? There's maybe historical reasons and the cultural environment, cultural context, right? Opening up to a different vision, you suddenly like, all right, what if I put myself in from this perspective, what does it look like? And we can just understand the other a lot better, understand yourself, because you then seeing yourself from a different perspective. But even more than that, I think we can co-create.
Yes.
And that's probably one of the things that the world needs on that global level, this ability to have this connection that is beyond, everything that we could see as limitations and as conflict and things like that we don't seem to be able to, for certain groups of people, being able to transcend. So that's, for me, that's how important and how impactful that work is, on a higher, well, if we take a little bit of a higher level. How does that resonate with you? What do you think?
I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking about examples. I'm thinking about when I was just out of university, I had the opportunity to live in West Africa because I was French speaking. And in that time, I mean, the people that I met, I had a position in the International Trade Administration, which was a part of the embassy, but I was able to separate myself as the more friends I made, and to be able to go with them to visit their families and go to attend weddings, and even one of my friends' daughters is my goddaughter now to this day, 30 years later. How could you have an insight into a culture that is in some ways pretty different than your own if you don't have, like you said, that bridge between language? It changed me forever. And then from there, I went to the United States Senate and worked in the Foreign Relations Committee, which is kind of the pendulum swinging from one to the other. Wow, how can we think with a broader mind? How can we think in a way that is sustainable and that is, compassionate and empathetic in the world? And then from there, different educational settings and master's degrees. I mean, the theme that has come up in all of my own personal professional development, as well as teaching in every educational kind of venue you can imagine, from a homeschool co-op to university, it is this essential. That is why we want to talk about it and encourage your listeners to, maybe it's the language of learning how to play the guitar that someone's really, their heart is really craving. Or maybe, obviously sign language is exploding in the world. People are being drawn to it. But whatever you want to do, wherever your heart is drawing you to be able to express yourself and listen to someone else that's a little bit different.
Yes.
Do it. Because it creates delight. It creates wonder. It creates a different kind of life experience. I think that, I'm just really grateful to get to be a part of it in people's lives, because someone will say, I thought you were coaching me in English, but it turns out I've decided to change my job completely. And I'm going over here and I'm starting this thing. And, because it is empowering.
Yeah.
And that is a gift that we as women, especially want to give each other. I mean, let's raise each other up.
Yeah. Yeah. Uplifting. Yeah.
You know?
And thank you so much for making this connection, because I think it's so important. And I'm so glad that you've made it for the audience listening to us, because languages is so much more than French, English, and some people might be listening to us and going, yeah, I'm not, it's not really my thing, and it's not really, maybe I'm from the UK and English is my only language and things like that. But think about, how much of languages we actually have. I love the love languages, for example. That's an example.
Yes.
But also, like you said, everything that we can express, body language, right? And anything that's part of this wonderful communication and connection. And the culture, of course, is a broader culture, but it's also our own personal culture, and we can have different cultures for different things. So really, the invitation here, I want to just reaffirm that, because I think it's so important, by opening up, by broadening our horizons on whichever level and whichever direction you feel inspired to, your heart pulling you towards. Having that openness is only gonna bring you more about yourself, helping you to grow, but also growing this connection. And that's how we grow as humanity. I believe, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that what you're saying is overstating it whatsoever, because we may not be able to solve the climate crisis today, you and me. However, if by building a sense of I call being a possibilitarian. If we can, with the people that we're working with, create in them a sense of possibility, whether it's to begin to try pottery on the wheel. I mean, that's a language. So we do what we can to advance a sense of possibility, I think. And I kind of consider myself a pollinator, meaning like I like to do different kinds of projects, and I move on from one thing to the other pretty often, because I really get a lot of stimulation out of starting things. I love to start things. And then I love to let them go and see how they take off on their own. And so I don't know, we could just sort of say to our friends that are listening, start something, just start something, you're worth it. You have something, a gift to give the world, and don't, put it out there. No matter what, be vulnerable. It's okay. Everybody doesn't have to like it. Is all that matters is that you like it,
No. And the theme of possibility is super cool. And really what that triggers for me too is like, you were talking about the example of pottery, but it could really be anything. What if that is possible? What else could be possible?
Exactly.
And that, in the light of the challenges of our day and age, in climate change and things like that, we know that for those issues on a social level, on an economical level, on a climate level, on environmental level, we're not going to be able to solve them using the things that we already know. We're going to have to create, to innovate. Those solutions do not exist just yet. So the possibility here for me is so key, because we just know it can be there, in this or that or the other, and things that we don't even dream about are going to happen, right? So cultivating possibility is a great starting point to see maybe how that resonates with you if you're listening to us now, and how you could see and put that into place, implement that in your own life. And it doesn't have to be big. It could really be, what's important is that what resonates with you. And cultivating possibility.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great. Wonderful.
Exactly.
There will be so much more that I'd like to ask you, but we're going to keep this podcast quite short.
Good.
And just to take us away,
Yes.
what would you like people to take away from this conversation? What would be something you would like them to stay with?
Well, let's keep going around down this path of what is here for me, and what baby step can I take today to do something that maybe I thought, wow, playing the piano, no way. Why not? Why not? I mean, time's going fast, right? And so we want to live with no regrets. And so living with no regrets means being willing to take a risk. So with language, certainly we see that people who speak more than one language, they have an inherent ability to welcome in uncertainty because they live in the realm between the two. So whatever it looks like for you, our friends out there, like take a step. Take a step today, because I think that when we do, it changes the quality of our inner dialogue with ourselves. And sometimes that inner critic who says, who do you think you are? Why should you get to live half the year in France? I mean, who do you think you are? I'm just me. I'm doing the best I can. And so I think we, it's an opportunity that inner critic can be really tough sometimes. And so, it's the same perfectionism that says, well, we'll teach the kids all the grammar and then we'll teach them how to speak the language. No. We start now at the very beginning. And then we grow from there. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it on that note of like, okay, y'all give us some feedback. Tell us what you did. What did you try? How did it go? And if it was like me trying to teach myself to knit this summer, you may say, well, I got the knit and purl down, but that is not my language.
And that's fine too, isn't it?
That's fine.
By exploring, you find out, right?
That's it. That's it. Oh, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much, Clem.
Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful for all the light and love that you're bringing into the world and all of your projects. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you so much. And completely send that back to you too, because as you can see, this conversation just really lit up for me and really connected to some deep things that are very, very dear. And people out there listening to us, thank you so much for being with us. Share with us your next step. What have you tried? What did you open up to? What was the next possibility that you explored? I'll be sharing with everyone as well below this recording all the different links to contact you, to connect with you, and with English Insiders as well that we've mentioned several times, so that everybody has got the links and the ability to being in touch if they like it. And
I would welcome that. I would welcome that kind of continuing the dialogue. These kind of ripple effect. It's one of the greatest things. It's one of the greatest things. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.